All right, hello everyone. Today for another one of our creative industry live discussions. Today we have Ginny Sterpka and representing libraries to Launchpads, and I'm gonna let her go ahead and introduce herself, and we'll get to learn more about her um, through our questions. Jenny, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what about your creative journey and what inspired you to get into the organization and work in the creative industry.
Yeah, thanks, Arlen. So I'm Ginny Sterpka. I am the program director for the Libraries as Launchpads initiative. We are a project of creative startups. Um, I kind of came into this role and this work in a roundabout way. I myself am a creative. I worked in a lot of creative industries. Um, I I'm not quite sure where to begin, but I've had different creative ventures myself. I used to do a lot, landscape design is one of the first small businesses that I owned. Um, I then, have worked for a lot of small businesses. I did point of purchase design, designing fabric, pop-up fabric displays. I've done costume design, dressmaking. I've started my own recycled material handbag business at one point. And then I started working with creative startups. And what I think really interests me about it is, I kind of saw in everything I've done in my past, these
Mhm.
different things that creatives starting businesses go through my businesses I had, as well as other small businesses that I worked with, some of which have gone on and grown and are doing some cool things. Um, but it really gave me insight. So coming into this work, with creative startups and supporting businesses, and then, when we first started the Libraries as Launchpads program, I was really excited about this work because I'm from a rural community under 4,000 people, and I saw this support through libraries helping with that business support, which is what we do. I realized I didn't actually give quite an intro into libraries as launchpads. So I'll do that now. But libraries as launchpads, we work with libraries to build their capacity to be able to support small businesses. And so, initially we launched that initiative in partnership with the New Mexico State Library. And we are looking at it as a way to bring more support to those communities that don't have support resources. The initiative since grown, communities of all sizes, libraries and communities of all sizes really see a place for them in those communities. Because, even in Albuquerque, where we have tons of resources, there's lots of people that don't know that those resources are out there. They don't realize they're there if they're not part of the business community. They might, what we've also heard is, some people don't feel comfortable going into the typical business resource places because they don't know the lingo, they don't know what to expect. And so they're a little hesitant to do that. And so the library is really a welcoming place, um, that, people have most people have gone into before. So it's a place that they feel more comfortable going in to initiate that kind of conversation. And it's somewhere that people can then get familiar with business, resources, where to go for different support needs, and then also makes them feel a little more comfortable entering that space. Um, and so we work with the libraries. We have a librarian training program for the libraries to feel more comfortable in that role, because a lot of times they're similar. They're like, we're not business people. How are we supposed to, help other people figure out where to go? And so, it's really supporting them in becoming, you know, experts in the business resources in their community, not business experts. So the libraries know where to help people find what they need, which is what they're doing already. Usually is helping people find the information and resources that they're looking for. And so, what really excited me about that is just making those resources more accessible. And like I said, when we first started, it was more about looking in the rural communities where we do see it as, you know, a huge change in those communities. Like we've worked with communities under 500 people where the librarian takes on that role, and she's said, you know, 7 people have come in within a month to get support because there's nothing else out there. And in a community of
Mhm.
under 500 people, that's like huge. Um, and one of the other things we see in those communities is also introduces this idea of starting a business to people that maybe didn't think that. And so, you know, like I said, I'm from a rural community, and, you know, part of the reason I'm not there anymore is because, you know, I stayed for a while I was an adult, but it just felt like there wasn't anything that was really fulfilling my creative energy to the extent that I needed it. I needed like something more stimulating. And, you know, in rural communities, if people don't get that, you see people getting into trouble and, you know, things happening. And so that's where I think a lot of people do leave the smaller communities they're in. And so this idea of introducing business to people that maybe aren't thinking about it and haven't really thought about that as an option, as something that they could do, and then, you know, remain in their rural community and potentially create jobs for other people in their community.
Exactly. I like that. I mean, I think the one thing that you're saying is really a program. Your program really meets people where they're at because you could you're not gonna not, every community may not have a SBA, right? Every community may not have a economic development department fully, right? So knowing that every community does have a library for the most part, and that library has already been a community resource, especially when you do go into the more rural areas, turning that into something that where people can change their mindset. It's already meant to do that, but now it gives another, I think, another driver to get people to libraries. It's almost like a mutual benefit relationship, or I guess you could say in a way symbiotic too, because if you embed those resources there, you're gonna get more people to come, but also you're gonna get more people to stay in that area if they know what they need to do uh, to make it more livable, right? Because I always, and this is the mindset I came when I moved to New Mexico was when I went to school in San Angelo, one of the people told me is you're not going to enjoy this place if you just sit around and you just complain about how much stuff is not here. If you want it, build it or do it, right?
Uh-huh.
Because if that's what's going to get you what you want, you're going to have fun, but also you're going to feel accomplished. And in a way, and that's something that they didn't add to it, but that is something that I learned. So I feel like, yeah, one of the things that you said for your town is the same narrative that's said for New Mexico overall for our creators, our other businesses and things like that is where they feel like they overgrow the area because they don't feel like it's anything for them anymore. When in reality, it's not that you overgrew it, you're just at the point now where you need to truly invest back into your community and invest back into the state and do that through possibly starting a business or collaborate with other people to probably do a business if that's too intimidating. But yeah, I really liked everything that you were saying just in that intro and introducing the program and talking about your journey, which I like that I would like to know, adding this into the next question too, but what was the connection between creative landscaping that led into you getting into fabrics and making recyclable creative materials? That's my first question, and then I'll get to the next question after that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, you know, growing up in a small town, lots of times you have to put your hands in lots of pots to make a living. And I think that was part of it. But, you know, I grew up in a, you know, farming communities, and we also had a lot of people that had weekend vacation homes in the area. And so it was something that there was a need for. And so, you know, in a rural community, sometimes you go to where that need is in terms of your work. And so that's when I initially started doing landscape design, gardening design stuff. Um, Fabrics was something I was always interested in. When I first went to school, I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology technology in New York, and I did accessory design, so shoes and bags. And so that's what I was initially doing before I then was doing the point of purchase design, the pop-up fabric displays. But then I went back to school for community and regional planning at UNM. And so that's kind of when I got introduced into this idea of more, how do businesses support the community? It's not just about, your personal um, way of making a living, which is I feel like how I had thought about it previously. Like this gave me this wider lens that was like, okay, this starting a business isn't just about you and you making a financial end. It's about how does that play into this bigger picture of community development, community planning, and how that affects the bigger picture of your community and the vitality of it.
I like that. So I mean, it seems like the underlying concept overall was just your creative style of approaching it, and having to use, right, your imagination just in your space, but all and always keeping that creative lens to whatever you're doing, because going for fashion design, which is a creative industry, but going in regional planning, which I don't think most people think about the creativity that goes into a lot of things like that, especially in like project management and other things like that outside of being in production, right? Being in production. It's easier to see it in production, but it's not easy to see it when you see an event going on, or why this community event, or why you're being engaged, or why these businesses are connected to each other or zoned in that area like that. So thank you for really highlighting some of that more in your personal journey. Now, um, how has New Mexico's creative landscape influenced your work and approach to collaboration?
Yeah, that is a great question. And creative startups, this is where we started and really where we found that need for support in the creative industries. We um were founded here, and really every single program that we start, we launch it here in New Mexico. And so it's really shaped our approach in everything that we do. With the libraries as Launchpads program, like I said, our first partner with launching that was the New Mexico State Library. And so I think that was a partnership that, really made the libraries launchpads happen.
Hmm.
We weren't working in libraries necessarily before that. We had done one program years before. That was just a one-off program. But that partnership really kind of embedded the libraries as launchpads program as one of our core programs that we offer. Uh,
Hmm.
and it connected us to a lot of communities across the state. We and really learned from those communities what they've seen. One of the stories that I really love to share the most is one of the libraries we worked with. They did a community assessment, just total overall, not focusing on any specific initiative or issue in the community. They just went out and were like, we want to know what our community needs from us.
Hmm.
So they found 4 or 5 things, and one of those was business support. And so what they did is, they said, that's not something we at the library can do. And they kind of put it aside. And then they heard about us, the work we were doing with the state library. And so they got in touch with us. And what they found in their community is, so one of the things we work with libraries to do is just understand what's in your local landscape already. Like who are the people supporting businesses, what's already out there for them, if there is anything. Sometimes they have to look outside their community more regionally, depending on what community they're in. But in this community, they talked with their county economic development, and they initially thought, we're going to have to convince people that the library should be doing this work. And what they found is their county said, oh my God, yes, we're so excited the library is going to be joining us in this. And I just love the story because there's other libraries we've worked with where they get the exact opposite. Their economic development folks say, "Oh, we're already doing that work. Why are you doing it?" Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I like that story because the library themselves had doubt, but their community really embraced this idea of we know the library has reach. The library is this place that has amazing reach in their community. They offer so much to their community. And so if the library is involved, it already has this huge trust factor because people the library is in in national surveys one of the most trusted places out there in the community.
Guaranteed.
Um, so I'm trying to circle back to the partnerships, but anyways, that partnership with the local public libraries is really core in this work.
Mm-hmm.
Initially when we were partnered with libraries, it was more about us coming in and doing programming within the libraries, but that has shifted to being more building capacity in the libraries to be able to do the work themselves because they're there, they're better in their communities, they're
Mm-hmm.
trusted. And so that partnership is just, what makes our program work, the libraries' Launchpads program work, and really is core to everything that we do with that program.
I like that. I like so it's like showing that collaboration really kind of fleshed out the program more from being the one-off to now thinking about what's the longevity of impact, right? Because I think that's one of the things that makes more sense, right? Because you can what's the fish concept, right? You can give a person a fish and they'll eat for a day, but you can if you teach them how to fish, they'll be able to eat for the rest of their lifetime because now they know the tools, they know what they need to do, and I think that's the best way to really invest in community and really enrich it. Because I think investment is one thing, but enriching is another. Because I can give you a lump sum of money and just call that investment and call it a day. But really to show you that I'm willing to come and make sure that the program's right and really give you the tools needed to keep it going. And to be able to meet many services because they're going to know their community more than you would in your capacity, right? So that I really like that concept and even seeing how that collaboration and partnership really led to a new program, more support for another underserved group of people and really fleshing out something that's needed, right? Seeing that value and need and meeting it.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to creatives who want to collaborate but don't know where to start?
That's a great question. I think one of the suggestions I would make is kind of figuring out like why do you want to collaborate? Like what are you in need of? One of the things we always say in creative startups is, like give and get. Like what is it that you need? What do you want to get? And then what also do you have to give? Like what would other people um why would other people want to partner with you, or what do you have that other people might um be useful for other folks? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think, it's a two-way street. And so that's something that you really need to be thinking about. Not just what do you need, but what do you have to offer? Um, and, I think every single field, every single industry, every single location is different. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so other than that, it's kind of difficult to say because it really just depends on what kind of partnership you're wanting for what reason and what's going on in your community. I I I think what in our world today, you don't have to remain just looking locally. There's so much you can do statewide, nationally, globally, with everything we have just at our fingertips. So I think it really is just figuring out, what's that mutual relationship that you feel like would be ideal for you, and then just not being afraid to reach out. I think that's a big thing too, is initiating the conversation with someone, reaching out, get on a call with people. go talk to them, and that helps you learn if that partnership's even going to work. But I think not being afraid to just start talking to folks about it, and seeing what you can figure out, and if it sounds like it would be a good collaboration, and if you are in it for the same reason and have the same ideals.
I like that. I mean, I think one of the things you said is really, I think it's really good and impactful, is to say what is the value that you see in wanting to collaborate in the first place from your end, and then not saying that you always have to bring value to collaborate, but just knowing why, your why, because it could just be just to hang out, right? Or just to be around people that's doing some of the same similar things as you. And it may not be a project or to get a grant or get more money or anything along those lines that has to be so professional. It could be the start of that, and then later on be professional. So I do think the that's a good bit of advice right there, is really just understanding your why and what's the value and what your need to collaborate at the moment. Now, how do you think creative businesses in New Mexico can work together to grow, not just individually, but collectively?
Yeah. Um, so I think this goes back to kind of what I was saying in terms of, community and regional planning. Um, if you take this mindset that's outside of just your individual, um, profit necessarily, or your livelihood with your business, and look at how is this affecting our region or our community as a whole, that can help with that. If we're looking at um a little bit bigger a picture. And I know that's sometimes really hard to do when you're running a small business, because you're just trying to make sure you can keep your doors open sometimes. Um, but it's when we start thinking about community impact along with, our business operations, it can make a huge impact on our communities. And another thing, not looking at other businesses collaboration, but looking as competition, but looking at them
Yes.
as
Yes.
potential collaborators and people that you can work with to grow your community. Um, one of the things that I always think seems surprising, and then when you really think about it and read more about the research behind it, you see the reason. But when uh, a big corporation will open, like there's a coffee shop, and then like Starbucks will decide to open a coffee shop right next to it. You're like, why would they do that? But when you
Mhm.
look at the research, it actually shows that, two similar businesses next to each other usually do better, because people are coming to that area for one or other of them, and then see the other one. And so they're already looking for that service or that product, whatever it is. And having two next to each other sometimes helps. Obviously, in a small community, this might not be the case if you don't have enough people to to serve to keep both of those businesses running. But it's just one of those things where, right, like instead of looking at people as competition, look at how are you supporting each other, and how is it maybe helping your business, or how can you support one another through that work that you're doing.
Thank you. Now, what role do you see technology um, playing in uh, like social media, virtual events we have to deal with AI, in fostering collaboration?
Yeah, I think, you know, I kind of said this a little bit before, but just the fact that we have access to so much at our fingertips, we can, reach out to people pretty much anywhere in the world, and strike up a conversation with them. It makes it really easy to, get the information we need, but I think along those lines also, it also put so much there that sometimes it can be more overwhelming, because it's like, well, what is the most valuable, or what should I pay attention to? But I think what it does allow for is one of the things that I often do when I, first am needing some information on something, if it's something that there is so much out there, is just asking someone else that is already has done it or is doing it, and ask them, what were the first steps you took? And so being able to reach out to people, like if you're starting a business, you're starting a creative endeavor, and there's some other person doing something similar, or that you really have you follow online, you follow on social media, wherever, you can reach out to them. It doesn't matter, if maybe they have a billion followers, like they might respond to you if you have really asked them a question, a personal question. Like people aren't doing that often. So if you're really just asking them something that's like, hey, I want to know about your experience, they might respond. They might not, because they might have, an overwhelming number of messages in their inbox, but it doesn't hurt to do that. But that's something that I definitely do, is I'll, reach out to someone and just say like, hey, do you have any advice on XYZ? Because, getting that first person experience is helps sort through all of the noise and all of the information out there. Um,
Hmm.
and that might not be the right path for you, but at least you're getting some input from someone that has been through it before.
I agree with that. Yeah. And I mean, and knowing that, I think it's a lot of scare with technology at times too, but also no seeing it as like the tool that could be used for what it is, right? Whether it's communication or speeding up a process, just understanding what you do have to, I think it is just playing the line or paying attention to the policies and reading it a little bit now to make sure that you're not they don't have the ability to take anything from you, but still using it to be able to collaborate and connect as best as possible. Because yeah, right, you might before the internet, you could be stuck in your own little bubble, and then you got to find it within your community, and if it don't exist, you just got to kind of deal with it or create it or go and drive to hunt it down. But now you can find it and probably find like-minded people, or probably find more people even in your own community that now are online and have a page or a platform or something along those lines to connect on. So I really like that. Now what's the collaboration that you've been a part of that had a lasting impact on your business, organization, or community?
Um, so I think, the library collaboration has just been huge. And, if I think about one specific collaboration, I think it would be with the state library, because, we've worked with them on multiple projects. They've been partners with us. Um, you know, we with the New Mexico State Library, we initially started working just within the state, but we did get a grant with them that was to expand that work to go nationally. And so we were able to get a grant to do a cohort of libraries all across the country, um,
Mhm.
through our training program and hosting programs in their libraries. We continue to work with them and look at different, avenues of supporting New Mexico libraries as well. Looking at, the tribal libraries, rural libraries, urban libraries, and just all across the board. Um, Through that collaboration, just, we're here in the same place, we're both in New Mexico. It's really just allowed us to um, test out and pilot a lot of the different library programs and initiatives to figure out, what works, and get a lot of feedback from the libraries themselves, and hear, what are you in need of? And so that's
Mhm.
really shaped a lot of the work we do, is being able to talk directly with the librarians and hearing, what's working for you guys, what are the things that you need. Like I mentioned, initially we had started kind of just using libraries as a place to deliver our programs, but it was really the feedback from the public librarian saying, like, this is great. We have people coming into our library now asking about business support. What
Mhm.
what do we do? And so, that's really when we're like, okay, we need to do something that supports the libraries in being able to do that work.
Mhm.
Because, some of them, knew where to look, but others just were not sure where to begin in terms of offering that support. And so that partnership with the state library and then, public libraries around the state that have worked with us through those initiatives has just been, super vital in this work and in shaping what we do.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, definitely big, a big and lasting impact. Being able to touch communities and even branch out from what it sounds like further than New Mexico too, and still being able to introduce the idea of that program to other places that could need it. I really like that. Like that, just seeing that initiative go from the um the idea to the collaboration to now the bigger project and still ongoing with the same partner that kind of helped you to branch out further. Now, what's one thing you would want fellow creatives to walk away with after today's conversation?
Um, Good question. I think, that and it's something I think you focused on with these questions though, but is that power of collaboration, looking at how can collaboration, within your community, within the state, outside of that area, really impact your individual community. So regardless of if those partnerships and collaborations are local or not, how can
Mhm.
that still impact your community? Um, and bring people in your community together, because like I said, what I've really learned over my journey is how a small business can impact the community that they're in, and really bring more more I'm not quite sure what word I'm looking for. I was going to say joy, but it can bring more excitement into your community. It can bring opportunities for other people in your community, that make them enjoy living there more as well, or make them stay. And again, I'm thinking of rural communities like where I grew up, and how it just brings more opportunity, folks. I'm also, mentioning that because I know New Mexico is a hugely rural community with our few
Mhm.
urban hubs. So, if I think more within in the urban areas, I think same though, like collaboration, um, regardless of where it's at, and how that does impact your immediate community by being able to, bring these other resources or ideas into your community because of these collaborations.
Yeah, I think what you touch on a little bit is like community makes a business, not consumers. All right, because if a business comes in and just does whatever they want to do, it may not last that long. And I think New Mexico, I mean, you might be able to do it anywhere else. You can't do it in New Mexico. That's one thing I've learned in my years of living here and working, and seeing like if you don't have a community buy-in, the community is not going to stand by you when you have your hardships or when things go down because you're not investing and enriching the community around you. And people don't know who you are. You might just be a business just now moving here because I'm a transplant myself. So I think a lot of things that people who are not from here have to come and understand is the community makes your business, and if your business like what you've been pushing, and I think really is very impactful, is if you start a business without community being centric, you're not doing it right, because I mean it's no way that you could really be successful in the community that you're in, whether brick and mortar, whether it's a digital community, whether it's online. And I come from the more content creation background, and I feel like in the influencer standpoint too, it's the same thing. If you don't build a community, nobody is going to really support you for your longevity. But if you build a community, you actually see the value that's needed and you're able to fill it in and really enrich it, people be with you forever, right? I mean, even the kids would they'll push their kids to go and support your business, or support the individual as well. So I really think that's a community being community focused and being collaborative is very much a good view
Mhm.
in moving forward, 100%. Now, do you have any upcoming projects, opportunities, or events you would like to share with us that your local that could support local creatives or other creatives throughout the state can come and support?
So yeah, we have a few things going on. Currently in New Mexico, we have some projects in Santa Fe area. So folks in Santa Fe area, we don't have much else going on in New Mexico right now, but in Santa Fe, coming up where we have a project that's um, at the Santa Fe Public Library. It's in partnership with the Office of Economic Development there in the public library. But on April 22nd, it's called Books Behind the Business. And so we'll have a local business leader come in and share a book that has impacted them on their journey. And talk a bit about, what it was from the book that really supported them on that journey. And so that's going to be a reoccurring event for every other month at the library there on the South Side Library. And so the next one, the first one actually is April 22nd.
April 22nd. And and I only know this because my birthday is April 21st. April 21st is actually the deemed the day of innovation and creativity. So you're doing it in a nice time frame. Um, just based off of that day. So that sounds really cool and look forward to supporting that series. I definitely would I know if we send us some information at Creative Industries, and we'll definitely share it in our newsletter. So it can be going in the cycle for creatives to be able to go and see it as well.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely we share that. And we have a few other things that will be coming out soon too that we just don't have all the details worked up, but we'll definitely share everything with you guys.
All right. And now if they wanted to keep up with creative startups or libraries to Launchpad, where can they come and find you?
Yeah, so our website, creativestartups.org, there's a link to Libraries Launchpad stuff on there, or you can also do libraries as launchpads.org. We're on most of the social media platforms, either at Create Startups, Create Startups, or at Libraries as Launchpads, Instagram, Facebook. We have LinkedIn groups. Those are all linked from the website as well. So most platforms you can find us if you just search either Creative Startups or Libraries as Launchpads.
Well, thank you so much for participating in our creative industries live discussions for the creative season. Thank you so much, Jenny, and I really hope you have a good rest of your day. And everyone now knows where they can be able to follow you and keep up with everything that's going on with libraries to launchpads and creative startups.
Thanks so much, Arlen. Thanks for having me.
All right. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye.